Chapter 2, Maharaj Nimi inquiring from the sons of Rishabdev, the Navayogendras, 9 mystics, about the practice of Bhakti-Yoga. And I think it's the first one of them. Is it Kavi is speaking and answering? Pardon?
Yeah, I think it's...
Yeah, and answering his questions. So this verse is very relevant to all of us who are practicing Krishna consciousness and wanting to remain in Krishna consciousness and remain active, successful devotees, success being defined as going back to Godhead at the end of this temporary material life. So I hope everyone can see, or you have it on your cell phone, 11:2:42. Bhakti Pareshanubhava Viraktir Viraktir Bhakti Pareshanubhava Viraktir Anyatra Chaisa Trika Ekakala Anyatra Chaisa Trika Ekakala Prapadyamanasya yatashnatashyus Prapadyamanasya yatashnatashyus Tushti pushtik chud apayo nughasam Tushti pushtik shud apayo nughasam Bhakti Pareshanubhava Viraktir Anyatra Chaisa Trika Ekakala Prapadyamanasya yatashnatashyus Tushti Pushti Shud Apayo Nughasam. Please chant.
Bhakti Pareshanubhavo Viraktir
Bhakti Pareshanubhavo
Viraktir Anyatra Sachai Sutika Ekakalaha
Ekakalaha
Prapadyamanasya yatasnatasyus
Prapadyamanasya yatasnatasyus Pushti Pushti Shud Apayo Nugasam
Bhakti Pareshanubhavo Viraktir
Bhakti Pareshanubhavo Viraktir
Anyatra Chaisa Trika Ekakalaha
Anyatra Chaisa Trika Ekakalam
Prapadyamanasya yatashnatashyus
Prapadyamanasya yatashnatashyus
Tushti Pushti Shudapayo Anughasham
Tushti Pushti Shud Apayo Nugasam
Bhakti Pareshanubhavo Viraktir
Bhakti Pareshanubhavo Viraktir
Anyatra Chaisa Trika Ekakala
Anyatra Chaisa Trika Ekakala Prapadyamanasya yatasnatasyus Tushti Tushti Shud Apayo Nugasam Bhakti Pareshanubhavo Viraktir Anyatra Chaisa Trika Ekakala Prapadyamanasya yatashnatashyus Tushti Pushti Shud Apayo Nugasam. Bhakti, devotion, para isha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anubhava, direct perception. Virakti, detachment. Anyatra, from anything else. Cha, and Eshaha, this. Trikaha, group of three, Ekakalaha, simultaneously. Prapadyamanasya, for one in the process of taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. Yata, in the same way as. Ashnata, for one engaged in eating. Shu, they occur. Shtushti, satisfaction. Pushti, nourishment. Shud apaya, eradication of hunger. Anughasam, increasingly, with each morsel. Translation. Please repeat. Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously. For one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. Purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this analogy as follows. Bhakti, or devotion, may be compared to tushti, or satisfaction, because they both take the form of pleasure. Pareshanubhava, experience of the Supreme Lord, and pushti, nourishment, are analogous, because both sustain one's life. Finally, virati, detachment, and shuddhapaya, cessation of hunger, may be compared because both free one from further hankering, so that one may experience shanti, or peace. A person who is eating not only becomes uninterested in other activities, but increasingly becomes uninterested in the food itself, according to his satisfaction. On the other hand, according to Srila Jiva Goswami, although one who is experiencing the blissful personality of Godhead, Krishna, becomes uninterested in anything other than Krishna, his attachment to Krishna increases at every moment. Therefore, it is to be understood that the transcendental beauty and qualities of the Supreme Lord are not material, since one can never become satiated by relishing the bliss of the Supreme Lord. The word virakti is very significant in this verse. Virakti means detachment, whereas tyaga means renunciation. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the word renunciation can be used in a situation when one considers giving up an enjoyable object. But by considering everything to be potential paraphernalia in the service of Lord Krishna, one need not give thought to renunciation, for one uses everything in the proper way in the service of the Lord, yukta vairagyam uchyate. The very pleasant analogy of a good meal is given in this verse. A hungry man busily consuming a sumptuous plate of food is not interested in anything else happening around him. In fact, he considers any other topic or activity a disturbance to his concentration on the delicious meal. Similarly, as one advances in Krishna consciousness, one considers anything unrelated to devotional service of Krishna an obnoxious disturbance. Such concentrated love of Godhead has been described in the second canto of Bhagavatam by the words Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham Param. One should not make an artificial show of renouncing the material world. Rather, one should systematically train the mind to see everything as an expansion of the opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a hungry materialistic man, upon seeing sumptuous food, immediately desires to put it in his mouth, an advanced devotee of Krishna, upon seeing a material object, immediately becomes eager to use it for the pleasure of Krishna. Without the spontaneous hunger to engage everything in the service of Krishna and to dive deeper and deeper into the ocean of love of Krishna, so-called realization of God, or loose talk about so-called religious life is irrelevant to the actual experience of entering the kingdom of God. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the path of Bhakti-Yoga is so joyful and practical that even in the stage of sadhana bhakti, in which one follows rules and regulations without an advanced understanding, one can perceive the ultimate result. As stated by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Iha yasya harer dasye karmana manasa gira nikalasapya avastasu jivan mukta sa uchate. As soon as one surrenders to the Supreme Lord, prapadyamanasya, giving up all other activities, viraktir anyatra cha, one is immediately to be considered a liberated soul, jivan mukta. The Supreme Lord Krishna is so merciful that when a living entity understands that the personality of Krishna is the source of everything and surrenders to him, Krishna personally takes charge of him and reveals to him within his heart that he is under the Lord's full protection. Thus devotion, direct experience of the personality of Godhead, and detachment from other objects become manifest, even in the beginning stage of Bhakti-Yoga, since Bhakti-Yoga begins at the point of liberation. Other processes have as their final goal salvation or liberation, but according to Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharmam parityajya mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma suchaha. If one surrenders to Krishna, one is immediately liberated and thus begins his career as a transcendental devotee with complete confidence in the Lord's protection. Jai. Bhakti paresh anubhava viraktir. Anyatra. So these three things, bhakti, devotion, paresh anubhava, direct experience of the Lord, and viraktir anyatra, detachment from anything else. Chai said, trika eka kala. These three things happen at one time. Trika eka kala. So, just as for a person who is, they happen prapadyamanasya, for a person who is surrendering. Just as yatashnatas, somebody who is eating, experiences these three things simultaneously. Tushti, which is what? Yes, pleasure, yes. Pushti, nourishment, right. And chud apayam, relief of hunger. Right? So, nugasam, with each bite, these things go on. So with each practice, activity, day of devotional service, we also have the opportunity to experience these three things simultaneously. Devotion and the joy of devotion, and then nourishment, which is compared to a direct experience of Krishna. And finally, anyatra, viraktir anyatra, disinterest in anything else. These are symptoms of taking bhakti appropriately. So let's look at them one by one. First of all, the joy, the pleasure, the happiness of bhakti. This is a challenge to understand intellectually. In fact, people cannot understand what motivates devotees. Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra, the mind of the devotee is just incomprehensible to the non-devotee. Srila Prabhupada used to say, I am not paying these boys and girls to chant and dance. So then why are they doing that? Once a book distributor was approached in the airport. He was selling books, and the man came up to him and said, I work for a publishing company and I've been watching you, and I would like you to work and sell our books. So the devotee relayed this to Srila Prabhupada, and he said, you tell him that by distributing this book, your books will be out of business. He had so much confidence in his product, Srila Prabhupada, because it is the natural position of the living entity to be joyful. And we're seeking that joy all the time. Anandamaya vyasa, that is the nature of the soul. Not only in human life, in every form of life, we're all seeking happiness, seeking pleasure. What gives one person pleasure is what gives a person pleasure is different from one to the other, and that's what gives us our individuality. But the simultaneous oneness and difference of the living entities is that we all seek pleasure in some form or another. So The pleasure of bhakti is experienced when? When there is actually performance of the 9 processes of bhakti, when there is the experience of the param drishtva, the higher taste. How would you describe, who would like to give a description of the higher taste of bhakti? If you were trying to explain it to somebody, why you chant, why you practice Krishna consciousness, what would you say? Yes?
So, after my mother departed, I was, of course, in grief. And I know, so some people say that, some people during this time, they take some kind of sedative or something, so they take a Vicodin or something.
She was not so interested. He was very interested, but she was not interested. But she'd come along, he would drag her. And when she was at the temple, the devotees would say, "Oh, you're suffering." And she said, "What are you talking about?" "I'm not suffering. What's your problem?" And sometimes we approach people like that. "Oh, you're so unhappy. You should chant Hare Krishna and you'll be happy." So this is actually not a very good approach. Unless somebody happens to be in a grieving situation. Once one of my godbrothers was visiting in Hawaii. As he put it, he was loitering in front of the public library, just standing around. And this very pretty blonde girl came walking by and he was watching her. And then she stopped and turned around and came walking over to him. And she said, and he thought, "Oh, she noticed me." And she walked right up to him and said, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to say this, but you're the most miserable looking person I've seen today." "But my spiritual master is visiting and he can make you happy." So in this case, that approach worked. And he came to see Srila Prabhupada. This is Balabhadra Prabhu, the director of the ISKCON cow protection program. Anyway, the point is that people do not know they're suffering unless they have some specific reason. So better we show them the positive side of Krishna consciousness. Better that we approach them by saying, "Hey, if you do this, you'll be happy. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy," Prabhupada summarized. So that can be seen as a blessing, chant Hare Krishna and be happy, or it can be seen as an order from Srila Prabhupada. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy.
Sometimes they will say, "I'm already happy."
This is for the devotees. And this is the point of my class this morning. This was not a blessing, it was an instruction. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So bhakti is a source of happiness. What happens if we're practicing bhakti and we're not feeling happy? What is happening? We experience some happiness at some point in our devotional career. Something has motivated us. This relief of distress and experience of happiness coming from unexpected sources, unexpected feelings resulting from practicing bhakti. So if we understand our responsibility in Krishna consciousness is to find out what makes us happy. Is that a difficult assignment? Is that unreasonable? To find out what makes us happy? Just what makes you happy in Krishna consciousness? This is really important to discover. This is actually self-realization, because we each have a unique way of pleasing Krishna. So we have to uncover what it is that we uniquely do, that no other living entity does, that pleases Krishna. And Krishna guides us to find that by what? By what we find pleasure in doing, you see. By what because when Krishna is pleased, how do we feel? Yes, we feel happy. If Krishna is pleased, we feel pleased. So when we feel pleased, we want to please Krishna more, because we're enjoying that pleasure of pleasing Krishna. And when we want to please Krishna more and Krishna is more pleased, how do we feel? More pleased. So this is the relationship between God and the devotee. The devotee is trying to please God and God is trying to please the devotee. This is called Nitya Yukta Upasate. It's this endless, loving reciprocation between the Lord and the devotee. That is the aspiration of every serious spiritual seeker. And all we have to do is find out that thing which makes us uniquely happy in Krishna consciousness. It is not going to be the same for everyone. Some particular service. So when we begin Krishna consciousness, it's Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, just hearing and chanting and practicing the basics of bhajana kriya, the basic activities of devotional service. And those are amazingly full of juice and joy. But then after we progress, then we need to become more specific about how we're going to serve Krishna. The basics remain. Even the great acharyas, the liberated souls, they always follow the regular principles. They don't abandon them. But the unique individual way we please Krishna is what we need to find out. Bear with me just a minute. So there was a disciple who came to Srila Prabhupada and asked him, Prabhupada, what would you like me to do for Krishna? And Prabhupada said, what would you like to do for Krishna? Anything you say, Prabhupada. No, I asked you, what would you like to do for Krishna? See? So when we progress, then Krishna wants us to become more specific. Go from wondering generalities, in being general devotees, to meaningful specifics. This is what I do for Krishna. This is my service for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said, a devotee should be a jack of all trades. You know this expression, a jack of all trades, able to do a little of anything, a little cooking, a little deity worship, a little kirtan, a little teaching, a little cleaning, a little repairing, a little of anything that needs to be done. But a master of one. A jack of all trades and a master of one. The English expression is a master of none. A devotee should be a master of one. So in understanding what makes us happy in devotional service, we need to introspect and find those things which bring us great joy. And when we find them, then our path to self-realization is more clearly defined than ever. So, Ramtirtha Prabhu, what was you going to say?
Same discussion, Prabhu. So sometimes, as you said, it is jack of all. So when devotee is experiencing happiness in all the services that they are doing, so will that be revealed to the devotee as they progress within? Krishna reveals to them that, okay, this is a specific service I want you to do, or because the devotee may feel happiness in doing multiple services. So how do we really identify that one particular unique service? How do we do
that comes with time, and it is very wonderful if a devotee feels happy doing a variety of services. So there's no stricture that you have to do just one. The point is to follow one's taste and find those things, if it's multiple things or individual things that make us happy. But in course of time, more and more it'll become apparent, this is my particular service for Krishna.
With regard to this discussion, you were saying, if Krishna is pleased, we feel pleased.
Yes.
How, as neophytes, do we understand that Krishna is being pleased?
Because Prabhupada said you will see him smile. If we don't see him smile, we should look in the mirror and see, are we smiling? Then we can understand Krishna is pleased. This is the point, it's all driven by happiness. You know, Krishna says in the Gita, be happy by this sacrifice. You know, in the 9th chapter also Krishna says, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Pratyak Sarvagamam Dharmyam Shukam Kartam Aveyam. This bhakti is the perfection of spiritual practice because it gives direct perception of the self by realization. It is everlasting and it is shushukam, very joyfully performed. You know, sukha is happiness. Shushukam is happiness on steroids. And so the question then becomes, what if we're not feeling happy? And this is a question that devotees often ask. It's like you bought a car, and at first you like it, but then you're not so sure about your purchase. So you take up Krishna consciousness, and first it's great, but then we're having second thoughts, right? So this is very natural and normal. Look at Arjuna. Krishna was personally preaching to Arjuna. And then at the end of their whole discussion, Krishna says, now, do what you want to do. And Arjuna says what? Now I am firm and free from doubt, and I'm prepared to act according to your instruction, and I'm very confident we are going to win this war. So that is after hearing directly from Krishna. But then the next day in the battle, Krishna again had to convince him. And the day after that, and the day after that, every single day, Arjuna was having doubts. When he's fighting Bhishma, he's, oh, I can't. Krishna said, come on, he's wiping out your army. No, okay. And finally, Krishna got so frustrated with Arjuna that he just jumped off the chariot, picked up a wheel, and started to run at Bhishma himself, which was just what Bhishma wants. So if Arjuna has these second thoughts, is it surprising that we would also, you see? And not only that, we are in an environment where we're totally swimming upstream. Where do we get encouragement to be Krishna conscious, in this society? We go to work or to school or to the store, anywhere. Is anyone, just encouraging you to chant? Does anyone ask you, how's your spiritual life? They're simply asking, how can you help me make more money? How can I get more out of you? And then people look at us like we're fools for spending our time chanting Hare Krishna, right? They think, what a waste of time. What do you possibly get out of that? You are not getting any money. You're not getting any prestige. I was calculating one time. So if you chant Hare Krishna for, if you chant 16 rounds, that's about 10% of your day, right? 8% of your day you spend just chanting on beats. So over the lifetime, how many hours is that? It's thousands of hours. And if you're working for $25 an hour, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars of work time are you losing by chanting? It's an investment.
I have to think now.
Yes. If you bloop, I'll be in big trouble. No, they cannot possibly understand what we're getting out of it. But like Rukmini, like you said, when you were in distress and you took shelter of Krishna, you felt relief. Every day, when I chant every day, every single day, I feel so much different when I finish my minimum japa from when I began. Whatever mess and scattered my brain is when I start, by the end I feel clear, I feel good, I feel energized, I feel, and what is the price of that feeling? What price can you put on it? So this is the happiness of bhakti. If we're not feeling happy, then we have not only a right but a duty to find out why. And this is why we need spiritual mentors. Karponya dosho pahata swabhava. Arjuna was distressed. He went to Krishna. He didn't know what to do. Shishyasteham sadimam tvam prapanam. Therefore he asked Krishna, please instruct me. His relationship changed from friend to teacher. It is not that we need to tolerate being unhappy in Krishna consciousness. If we're unhappy, something is wrong, we need to get to the bottom of it and correct it. Very often our unhappiness comes because of neglecting our chanting and minimizing its importance. So if we don't do anything else in the day, the chanting is our most important thing. Actually, one step above that, Prabhupada said. He said, first priority is health. First priority is health. second priority is chanting. Third priority is service, and fourth priority is reading. So being a devotee doesn't mean to neglect one's health. That's because death, fire, and disease have to be dealt with immediately. But if we are in good health, then the next thing should be chanting. And that chanting is like just irreplaceable. It doesn't always make us immediately happy. But if we don't chant, we will become affected immediately. Right? So, that's the commitment of devotional service. Prabhupada said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. There's a story in the Hitopadesh about the jackal and the moose. You know this story? The jackal is walking through the fields and all of a sudden falls into a well that was overgrown. Didn't see it, so he's stuck in the bottom of this well. The sides are slick, he can't get up. So he's thinking, and he starts dancing and singing. And the moose hears the singing coming from the hole, and he comes over and looks, and there's the fox dancing, the jackal. And so the moose says, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm dancing, it's so fun. You should join me." And so the foolish moose jumps in the well, and the jackal jumps on his antlers and jumps out. So in devotional service, we invite people, yes, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. And then you jump in and you find out, whoa, it's a lot of work. Go ahead. So,
priorities you said. But as far as I've seen, you don't remain inspired in chanting if your reading and hearing is not strong.
yes, in the long term, yes.
Yeah, so I would say hearing is, if you hear, then you'll be inspired to chant. So it is like a higher priority. I mean, it's for me at least.
I see. Well, initially, we have to hear and become convinced. So, but we're all devotees of some experience. So this is for sustaining Krishna consciousness. Like in the beginning, it's like a special introductory offer, because you get this relief from anxiety, right? Mystically, like it's nothing you experienced before, and you get happiness, and progress is very, very fast. But then it comes to a long plateau called the clearing stage, and it's in this position, in this stage, that chanting is so much emphasized. We do have to hear. It's not that the hearing is not important. It's just not as important as chanting. If we can only do one or the other, chanting should be the priority. And the hearing is what sustains us, but the chanting day by day keeps us progressing. Okay, so anyway, this is bhakti, the joy of bhakti. If we're not experiencing happiness, this is my point, we need to do something about it. We need to understand that's not right. Like in the Catholic tradition, the monks have a method of self-flagellation. You see, in order to break their attachment to the material, they voluntarily impose suffering upon themselves. You know this? They whip themselves, right? Draw blood, and this is their sacrifice to God. Whoa, any chance? Yes. So we don't have to take these intense austerities, self-flagellation, making ourselves suffer. These are described in the Gita as austerities in the mode of ignorance, just to torture the flesh and the super soul within. That isn't the process, but it looks like that to the non-devotees. It looks like tremendous self-torture. One of my godbrothers used to give a lecture every year at a Christian theological seminary, and they had a display case of Hinduism artifacts. So the professor would greet a friend and then walk slowly by this case of Hindu artifacts featuring a big bed of nails. And the Christian would kind of look at my godbrother and like, I don't have to do that for my salvation. So they think 4 regular principles, like that Marquis of Zetland, right? Oh, horrible, I'd rather die than follow these 4 regular principles. Horrible, horrible. That just thinking it's austerities, trying to climb a stairway to heaven by the dint of severe austerities. This is what the non-devotees think. So it is, of course, subjectively, it is not at all like that. Not at all. It is Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, ever-increasing ocean of happiness. So the causes of our unhappiness are usually based on a neglect of chanting japa, or minimizing our chanting and its importance in our lives. That impedes our happiness in bhakti. So it is not a very difficult formula. It's certainly a place to start, first place to start. How is my chanting? Chanting is so important that in my experience it is best done first thing in the morning. My father used to say, when you're loading the car for a vacation, put the biggest suitcase in the trunk first. If you get the biggest one in first, then you can somehow fit everything else around it. So chanting is the biggest suitcase. And if we do that first thing in the morning, we are inoculated from Maya for the whole day. It's our vaccination. So that means getting up early in the morning. And that means what? Going to bed early at night, yes. So practically, if we go to bed early at night, 90% of our problems in Krishna consciousness are resolved. It's with all due respect, that's a simple thing, and it's very difficult, especially for younger people. Younger people tend to be, the brains get activated at night. They're very dull. And we've been waiting all day for it to happen, and finally at night it happened. But it is possible by a little discipline. And then those morning hours are so precious and so favorable for spiritual life. It doesn't mean one has to be very rigid and disciplined. Rather, instead of relaxing at the end of the day, relax in the beginning of the day. Instead of having your free time at the end of the day, have it in the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, the body is tired, the mind is tired, it's natural to go to sleep. Just as early as possible, 8, 9, 10, as early as possible, go to sleep immediately. And then you wake up refreshed, you have 2, 3, 4 hours, you can chant in a very relaxed way, you can read, you can do things that you enjoy in devotional service. It's such a nice way to start the day. These are usually the reasons why our happiness becomes affected, because we're rushing through our japa, we're rushing through our morning. So the day starts off in the mode of passion instead of the mode of goodness. See? Mode of goodness is characterized by happiness, by satisfaction with what one has, by being in the moment and enjoying the moment, right? So bhakti, tushti, happiness, pleasure, right? Any comments on this, Prabhu?
So as we are practicing bhakti, what I have seen is that initially we enjoy many services, we feel happiness doing many services. But different stages of bhakti, different things give happiness to the devotee. Initial stages, I may be happy doing the service in the kitchen. Eventually my happiness shifts to deity services. And after some time, maybe reading more, or chanting more, or preaching. So that shifts.
Yeah.
So that's something I have
The
observed.
the constant is seeking that thing which brings us pleasure, because it's bringing Krishna pleasure. And you're absolutely right. There is an evolution of our relationship and our service with Krishna. That is a natural growth of devotional service. Look at Srila Prabhupada's life, how he evolved and took step after step after step, even at great risk. But he said that even though he was externally doing such austerities in his early days in New York, within himself he felt very fulfilled because he knew he was serving his spiritual master, carrying out his spiritual master's order with all difficulty.
Another point, nobody has any question. So sometimes...
Well, Rukmini has a question.
Oh,
No, go ahead.
Okay.
so sometimes there may be a unique service for the devotee. Devotee is willing to do some service. He feels joyful by serving Krishna in that way. But there is a need for some other service at that time. So there are no other devotees to do the service.
Yes.
But devotee is not very joyful to do the service. How
Yes.
do we address that kind of situation?
Yes. That means we need more devotees. See? Right? So it could be a little incentive for us to make arrangements. See, we talk about making devotees. We use that phrase, let's make some devotees. Well, like in Dr. Frankenstein's lab, we'll put them together, assemble this, we'll manufacture some devotees. We can't make devotees, but what we can do is make an atmosphere that is so inviting that Krishna will send devotees. That's within our control. See, so if we're feeling emotional, negative emotions like that, I'm overworked, that can be an incentive. Okay, what will make me happy? Well, it will make me happy to have some new person step forward and take this service. And so I need to, Krishna in this way is telling me I need to do something to find that person, to make things easy for that person to become Krishna conscious, to facilitate, you see. So that's where we need to put our energy. When we get, you see, having a negative emotion in Krishna consciousness is not happening independently of Krishna, right? For some reason, Krishna is guiding us through this emotional experience to do this and do that. So it should not be a cause for losing faith in Krishna, or for thinking that Krishna is not paying attention. Hey, I'm doing all this service, and you're making me feel like this. So we use those as guidelines, as little course corrections. Okay, yes?
So if I could tell a very short story.
Please.
So Srila Rupa Goswami once was absorbed in chanting, and he was envisioning the pastimes of Sri Krishna happening as he was chanting. So he was completely absorbed, and something funny happened, and he laughed. And at that moment, someone who was lame had come before him. And so that person thought that he was laughing at him. So then he was very hurt, and then he went to, I think he went to Sanatana Goswami, and said, I'm very hurt and surprised. Rupa Goswami was laughing at me. And then Sanatana Goswami said, no, he's just absorbed. That's what happens. But in the meantime, Srila Rupa Goswami had noticed that suddenly he was no longer feeling happy. And so then it had broken his trance, and then he was trying to find out what had happened. And I think someone told him, so somehow he found out that this was what had happened, and he came running after that person to apologize to him. And of course the person also apologized for thinking that. But this was a, so I mean, even Srila Rupa Goswami didn't, we can't imagine what level that person is on. But he was finding as soon as there was some, I mean, this whole pastime it appears just to instruct us that as soon as there was some hint of some offense to some other person, then it broke the bliss.
Very good point. So another big cause of feeling a lack of taste and happiness is that we're making some offense that needs to be corrected. Thank you. That's very pertinent. All right.
The root cause of all offenses is inattentive chanting.
Root cause of all offenses is inattentive chanting. Yeah. Yes. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
creating an atmosphere
Mhm.
that Krishna can send devotees. Now, how do you create the atmosphere? Is it through deity worship? For example, we were in Alachu and we heard this, that they do so beautiful deity worship that the atmosphere is very conducive. Or is it through devotee care?
Yeah, it's from my experience, the devotee care. As far as finding newcomers to Krishna consciousness, it begins by devotee care. Just remember one god sister who was doing deity worship wrote to Prabhupada and said, "It's so difficult now that I have a child to worship the deities." And Prabhupada said, "Your children should be your deities. Your children should make your children your deities." So similarly, we want new people coming, then we have to make them like our deities. You see, that is our priority. Yes, someone certainly needs to take care of the deities. That's the Pancharatrika Vidhi. But the Bhagavad Vidhi, we actually give more stress in the Chaitanya line. So the creating the atmosphere means doing things like having appropriate classes prepared, having somebody responsible for receiving guests. Who was telling me? It was Alec. You were telling me the first time you came to the temple, right? There was a kirtan going on, and you just huddled in some corner. Nobody talked to you. Nobody acknowledged your existence, which is kind of what you wanted, I guess.
New Year's Eve.
But with New Year's Eve kirtan, that's right. But would you have appreciated if someone had come and said Happy New Year and welcome and glad you came tonight? I mean, would you have been offended? Okay, so just becoming conscious of the needs and interests of new people. As far as Westerners, getting Westerners to become Krishna conscious, you have to take it several steps further. There needs to be a great deal of accommodation for people who are not steeped in Vedic culture to appreciate the value of Krishna consciousness. Particular classes, being able to present the philosophy appropriately, not all 12 cantos in the first 10 minutes, right? And finding out what interests people. It's mystical, but if we do these things, then Krishna sends people. Just like when parents want to conceive a child, according to their consciousness at the time of conception, a particular soul is attracted to come to that womb, you see. So in the same way, the consciousness of the devotees gives birth to new devotees. And so shifting our care for their needs is mystically powerful. That's what happens. All right. Yes, Prabhu.
So Prabhu, as Rukmini Mataji also mentioned that once we are feeling the lack of taste in our chanting, then we can apologize if we are making some offenses. But there are few cases in which we can't apologize. Like for example, it's our own thoughts due to which we are making offenses while chanting, and then we can't apologize to our own thoughts, or that it's being getting worse. The taste is getting worse and worse due to those thoughts. So how do we...
This is, you're keeping it real. Yes, if we are thinking critically of others, feeling that we have been offended, or feeling angry for something they have done, and we are obsessed with it, this is whose problem? Yeah, it's our problem. So what is the only cure for feeling angry at somebody? Either kill them or forgive them, right? So of the two, yes, we have to learn how to forgive. And it's not for the benefit of the person who has offended us, it's for our own benefit. Harboring angry thoughts towards someone is like saying, I'm mad at you, so I'm going to drink poison. And that'll teach you. Right? I mean, if somebody is being offensive toward us and they see us angry, then how do they feel? Yeah, absolutely. Good, I've got this person annoyed. So the best way to get even is to forgive them. See?
Let's say it's not because of other people.
Okay.
It's just because of our own kama, krodha, moha, and all those.
I see. Okay. So you're saying that when you're chanting, you have a lot of negative, non-devotional things come up, and it makes you upset with yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. You also have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive yourself. It's like once I was in Vrindavan with my son who was in the Gurukula there, and he wanted to go to Seva Kunj. So outside of the little park was a little man selling little bags of chickpeas to feed the monkeys. And he said, let's feed the monkeys. So I bought the chickpeas. The moment I had the chickpeas in my hand, there was a monkey on my shoulder. And I was turning around doing this, and he said, just give him the chickpeas, give him the chickpeas. Fortunately, so I gave him the chickpeas, he jumped off and ran away. I just took them and ran away. I think he worked for the chickpea salesman. But, so we have a monkey on our neck, in our mind. You know, we are disadvantaged. We are hobbled. We're affected by the monkey of mind. And there's really not much we can do about it. It is a product of not only years, but lifetimes of conditioning. So it's going on and on and on. So what advice does Krishna give in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita? What analogy does he give? Does anyone remember at the end of the chapter?
As rivers flow into the ocean.
Like the river is always flowing into the ocean. So in the mind of the transcendentalist, this river of desires is always pouring in. But like the ocean is accepting the rivers without changing. So the mind of the transcendentalist accepts and recognizes this river of desires is just flowing in, but it doesn't affect them. They don't change their behavior. See? So we can forgive ourselves. See? And then just accept that we're not perfect, that our minds are very disabled, and therefore it's affecting us. But at the same time, it doesn't have to affect us if we just accept that we're in a conditioned state, that we're imperfect. Okay? We have to be a little nice to ourselves, in other words, just forgiving, like, okay, it's all right. Yes, your mind is crazy. Just go on chanting. It's okay. All right? Does that help?
I can read a little purport about the mind.
Do we have time? What is our time?
It is small.
Okay. That wasn't my question.
So he says there is one easy weapon with which mind can be conquered. Neglect. Like you were saying.
Neglect.
The mind is always telling us to do this or that, therefore we should be very expert in disobeying the mind's orders. Gradually the mind should be trained to obey the orders of the soul, and then he says about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how we should beat the mind with the shoe, and room at night.
And sweep it at night, yes. Just like when Haridas Thakur, we all experience sex desire. So when Haridas Thakur was approached by this prostitute who was sent by this Khan to seduce him, how did he greet her? Did he say, oh, get away from me, go away, terrible, blah, blah. No, he just said, oh, please, welcome, sit down, I'll attend to you just as soon as I finish my chanting. So yes, okay, I have this desire, just please sit down and I'll get to you as soon as I finish. He was respectful, he was patient, he was considerate, he did not fight her, he did not blaspheme her. He just said, yes, please be seated, I'll get to you as soon as possible. Okay.
Prabhu, that guilty feeling after a while, does it go away? Like, because we all experience that we all constantly feel that, they haven't done this. Or
Guilty.
As he said.
Yeah. Guilt is not a sustainable motivator for Krishna consciousness, for devotional service. We can't serve Krishna because we're guilty. See?
No, like, what we said, referring to that we always feel that, I'm not doing this or,
There's a difference between feeling like fallen and humble and feeling guilty. Okay? To be humble means to accept that we are very blessed with the process of Krishna consciousness, and therefore we appreciate it, we treasure it, we don't take it for granted. See? To be guilty means it will lead us to think, oh, I can't do this, because nobody wants to feel guilty, right? We get rid of, okay, I feel guilty because I'm not chanting, therefore I'll stop chanting. No, we have to chant because when we chant we feel good. It's a positive motivator. Okay, Prabhuji, what's your Chanaka Prabhu?
I wanted to say, in the case of what he was talking about, I'm thinking that an easier way of helping such a person is that he should hear more and read more to change the pattern of his thoughts. Because in most cases, this is always the occurring.
This is a very good point, yes.
If he continues to hear and read, then the pattern of his thinking and his feeling will change.
Yes, a very, very good point. Yes, so in other words, the mind has to be treated in a friendly way, but also it has to be treated, right? And the treatment is done by ingesting positive spiritual messages from the Shastras. So this is one of the reasons why I love this verse so much. It's such a positive verse. Bhakti Pareshanu Bhava Virakta. Direct experience of the Lord, Pareshanu Bhava. That comes with the practice in time. And then Anyatra, Virakti or Anyatra. Then we lose interest in other things. This Anartha Nivritti. This is such a nice analogy. Okay, last point, Rukmini Prabhu.
Yeah, actually just bringing together both what Prabhu said and Chanaka Prabhu said. So in Gita chapter 17, verse 16, the self-discipline of the mind, Shri Krishna says, one of the things he says is monam, which is mental silence. So this is coming to what Prabhu said about neglect of the mind. So the same, in the previous verse he described how to restrain our speech, to speak what is truthful, pleasing, and beneficial, and what is not agitating. And so in this verse he's saying that one should be restrained in one's speech towards one's mind. So in other words, not engage with those thoughts.
It's a very good point. It's very, very reminiscent of raising a child. A child who feels neglected will act out to get attention, because negative attention is better than no attention. So the mind, feeling neglected, will act out at first. But if the child does not get that reinforcement from negative attention, then the child will try some other strategy.
And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that one feeds the mind with the tales from the Bhagavatam, the tales from the Puranas. So one is giving that, which is giving the pleasure to the mind through that. And
yes. I appreciate this point you and Chanaka Prabhu you're making, yes. We have to ingest. But the Rupa Goswami says that Cheta prangini sarvani vijayate sarvendriyanam kritim. No jane janita ki abdir amrita krishneti varnadvaya. I have no idea how much nectar is contained in these two syllables, Krishna. And when the holy name of Krishna dances in the courtyard of the heart, it conquers the activities of the mind and all the senses become inert. So chanting is our first weapon, and then the reading is a supplement to help. So first, to make sure we're enjoying tushti in our Krishna conscious practice. First is chanting. Okay, thank you very much. So nice to be here. I appreciate you inviting me and offering me this opportunity this morning. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Kalakantha Prabhu.